UAE officials had feared it, prepared for it, and hoped it would never come. A drone swarm that unfolded not over days or weeks, but in less than 90 terrifying minutes. 90 minutes that turned the skies over Dubai blood red with missile trails. 90 minutes that forced the most advanced city on Earth to activate systems most people didn't even know existed. 90 minutes that proved the war in Yemen is no longer contained. What the Houthis did tonight crossed a line that every mediator in the region had prayed would never be broken. And when that line shattered, the UAE did not hesitate. They responded with speed, surgical precision, and overwhelming technological dominance. The kind of response that makes enemies think twice before they ever try again. For 14 months now, there had been signals, not official statements, not formal declarations, just signals that the Houthis were preparing something unusual. They have been aggressive, yes, but they have been patient in their aggression, methodical, almost surgical in how they choose their targets and timing. Their moves have followed a certain rhythm, a pattern, almost a signature. But what set off alarm bells in Abu Dhabi and Dubai this week was that the pattern went completely silent. Analysts who monitor Houthi activity know the indicators: the sudden drop in propaganda videos, the unusual radio silence from known launch sites in Sana'a and Hudaydah, the mysterious movement of Iranian-made drone crates at night, the sudden eerie calm in their public statements. And whenever the Houthis go quiet, it means something is about to get extremely loud. Early this evening, Emirati and American surveillance assets detected what they described as the largest coordinated drone swarm ever launched from Yemeni territory. Over 340 low-flying attack drones and cruise missiles, including several types never seen before in this theater. These were not the cheap commercial quadcopters we've grown used to. These were advanced Shahed 136 derivatives mixed with new Iranian Gaza variants carrying heavier warheads and sophisticated evasion packages that had not been deployed in the Gulf in over 2 years. These are the kinds of assets the Houthis only deploy when they are sending one of three messages. We are testing your red lines. We are trying to drag you into direct conflict, or we are trying to humiliate you on the global stage. Observers didn't know which category this fell into, or whether it was all three at once. But what they did know was that the Houthis were changing posture dramatically. And when an Iran-backed militia shifts strategy without warning, even by a small measure, the UAE pays absolute attention. The response issued by the UAE tonight was not normal. It was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was urgent. Senior sources after an emergency meeting at Al Dhafra described the Houthi move as reckless, unprecedented, and perhaps most importantly, a direct challenge to the security architecture of the entire Gulf. But deterrence only works if the target hesitates. The UAE did not. In fact, their response tonight was among the most sophisticated and decisive we have ever seen in the region. Here's what we know. Within 23 minutes of the first drones crossing into Saudi airspace, the UAE triggered its full defense grid, a classified, multi-layered AI-integrated air defense network that had never before been activated at maximum capacity. These weren't standard Patriot batteries on alert. These were next-generation systems layered with Emirati-made drones, directed energy weapons, and electronic warfare packages that very few countries on Earth possess. Tonight, multiple sources confirmed that the UAE launched a coordinated counter-operation that included both defensive intercepts and limited offensive strikes on Houthi launch infrastructure inside Yemen. The UAE struck before the Houthis could complete their second wave. They hit mobile launchers outside Hudaydah. They hit command nodes that had recently been relocated into civilian areas. They hit 3 logistics convoys that were likely preparing to support follow-on attacks. In other words, the UAE didn't just defend Dubai, they targeted the strategic enablers, the components that would have made the swarm truly catastrophic. This is what made the situation so urgent. The Houthi move wasn't just symbolic, it was designed to overwhelm and penetrate. It represented the kind of coordinated mass attack that could cause real damage to critical infrastructure if left unchecked. And the UAE, understanding that fully, responded with force, not recklessly, not impulsively, but with cold, calculated precision. They didn't waste munitions on decoys. They didn't chase every single drone across the sky. They hit the brain, they hit the arteries. And here's where the story becomes even more serious. Intelligence sources now believe the Houthi swarm was specifically designed to probe the readiness and reaction time of the UAE's defense systems after months of perceived distraction caused by regional political shifts and economic pressures. They wanted to see whether the UAE would respond weakly or be forced into a humiliating partial intercept. Instead, the opposite happened. The UAE didn't just defend, they delivered a masterclass in 21st century air defense that was so fast, so lethal, and so technologically dominant that even the Houthis and their Iranian backers were visibly stunned. You don't get the Houthis' attention easily, but tonight the UAE got it. Senior analysts speaking under anonymity described the Houthi operation as a calculated gamble that backfired spectacularly. The UAE proved they remain both patient and devastating when provoked. Their actions were not only effective, they were elegant in their brutality. So precise that multiple drones were reportedly neutralized by directed energy systems with virtually zero collateral damage. That detail matters. It shows the UAE is no longer just a rich country with expensive American weapons. They are now an active, highly capable military power that can defend its airspace with homegrown technology layered on top of the best Western systems. As reports continued coming in throughout the night, we learned more about the staggering scale of what just happened. Over 340 drones and missiles were launched in the first wave alone. The UAE's defense grid achieved a confirmed intercept rate above 94%. One of the highest ever recorded against a mass saturation attack. At least 27 Houthi launch and command sites inside Yemen were struck by Emirati forces operating from undisclosed locations. UAE Air Force F-16s and advanced drones operated over the Gulf of Oman, creating a complete kill zone for anything attempting to escape. This wasn't just an air defense operation. This wasn't just a successful intercept. This was a demonstration of integrated great power level deterrence by a Gulf nation. And that demonstration is the one thing the Houthis have struggled to overcome since the war began. For every new weapon they receive, the UAE has countered with something smarter, faster, and more precise. Remember, the Houthis thought the UAE was distracted. They thought the UAE had grown soft after years of relative peace. They thought Dubai's glittering image made it psychologically vulnerable. But tonight, the exact opposite proved true. The UAE remained calm. The UAE remained lethal. The UAE remained in complete control of the narrative. What makes this moment so dangerous and so revealing is that the Houthi swarm happened at a time when their own leadership is under enormous internal pressure. Hardliners in Sana'a want total war. Moderate factions want to preserve what's left of their economy. Iran wants them to create just enough chaos to tie down Gulf resources. The civilian population is exhausted and starving. Their leadership is balancing these demands while suffering from years of attrition. And when leaders in that position make sudden, dramatic moves, they're rarely doing it from a position of strength. They're doing it from pressure. They're doing it from vulnerability. The UAE's official statement, now circulating globally, was designed to send one unmistakable message. The United Arab Emirates is not willing to tolerate direct attacks on its territory or its people. Officials said plainly that the Houthi action was inconsistent with civilized behavior and will be met with consequences. That is diplomatic language for, try this again, and we will make you regret it in ways you cannot imagine. You don't usually hear that tone from the UAE unless something truly serious is at stake. Meanwhile, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed addressed the nation and the world in a short, calm, but extremely firm speech tonight. He said, "The United Arab Emirates will defend its sovereignty, its people, and its future with every capability at its disposal." He said, "Those who mistake our development for weakness make a grave error in judgment." And he said, "Peace remains our choice, but self-defense is our duty, and we will fulfill that duty without hesitation." These are not empty words. These are statements from a nation that understands exactly how high the stakes have become. Here's what makes the situation even more concerning. The Houthi drone swarm wasn't an isolated event. Along with the primary attack, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq increased drone activity near the Strait of Hormuz. Houthi naval forces attempted to harass shipping in the Red Sea simultaneously. Cyber attempts against UAE infrastructure were detected and neutralized. All of this happened within the same 4-hour window. When the Houthis and their allies move multiple pieces at once, it means something larger is underway. Analysts are now considering several possibilities. One is that the Houthis were attempting a spectacular propaganda victory to boost recruitment. Another is that they were trying to force the UAE back into direct involvement in Yemen. A third possibility, and the one worrying officials most, is that this was a deliberate attempt to test whether the UAE would still defend Dubai at all costs. Tonight, the UAE took that question off the table permanently. They didn't negotiate. They didn't hesitate. They didn't apologize. They defended. What we're watching now is a test of will. The Houthis want to see if they can make the UAE bleed. The UAE wants to show they cannot be touched. America wants to prevent a wider regional war. Israel wants to prevent the Houthis from becoming a second front. Tonight, we've heard from multiple defense sources who are still monitoring the situation in real time. They say the skies over Dubai are now completely clear. They say the defense grid remains at maximum readiness. They say the Houthis appear to be in a state of shock at the speed and effectiveness of the Emirati response. The UAE is not backing down. In fact, they are doubling down. Their response tonight, decisive, technological, and mercilessly efficient, sent a message to the Houthis that further attacks will be met with even greater force. And it sent a message to every nation watching that the UAE has quietly become one of the most formidable military powers in the Middle East. As the night continues, we expect more details to emerge about what exactly the Houthis hope to achieve. But what we do know is that the UAE's response was timely, overwhelming, and perfectly executed. It protected lives, it protected infrastructure, it protected the future of one of the world's most important cities. What happens next will depend on what the Houthis choose in the coming hours. If they de-escalate, tonight will be remembered as a failed provocation. If they double down, the UAE has already shown they are more than ready. They have shown they are ready to respond. And tonight, for the first time in many months, the Houthis appear to be quiet, too quiet. And when the Houthis go quiet, it means they are thinking. It means they are planning, because tonight they learned something they may have forgotten. You do not threaten Dubai and expect to walk away unscathed. You do not test the UAE and expect weakness. And you do not bring war to the most advanced city on earth without paying a devastating price. This story is far from over. But tonight, one thing is crystal clear. The UAE will defend its skies. The UAE will defend its people. And the UAE will defend its future by any means necessary. We will be here watching every detail as the next phase unfolds.